you're welcome here. Make yourself at home.
I was going to say good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon from wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we know that obviously you're all interested in moving to New Zealand. We're based in Auckland, and we're going to be talking to you about, as health professionals, how you can get prepared to move. So I'm Jo. And I've been working in for about 17 years. I moved to New Zealand 20 years ago. And so for the best part of my life in New Zealand, I've been helping to bring skills into New Zealand. So it's my absolute passion. And next to me, we've got Robin.
Hi. I've been working in for the last few months, and I've got experience in international recruitment prior to that. And unlike Jo, I've been here for a lot longer than 20 so years in New Zealand, right from day dot.
Yes.
So great company to work for, and it's exciting to be able to assist people like yourselves in the process.
That's right. Yes. So Robin was, to clarify, Robin was born here, so she is a Kiwi, and I'm a pretend Kiwi. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of background about us. And so firstly, this is our health recruitment team, who you may, some of you, I think, may have already met Gina before. Gina's in the red dress. And Jane, you may have had some communication with Jane. I think there might even be some nurses on still from Singapore. I was in Singapore recently, so those are probably some familiar faces or names there, but that's the health recruitment team. And so we are all here to assist in helping you to secure a job and support you in that process to move to New Zealand. And so you'll just see here, we've got three sort of key points on this slide. So our business has got three key services for you. One is international recruitment, and the other is immigration advice and visas. So we can actually process your visa application and manage that. And also we do relocation and settlement support as well. So, you can tap into all those resources that we have here, and we can literally help you from anywhere in the world with all those services. So we've got a lot to talk about today. I can appreciate that you're all really busy. It's that time of the year, but we just wanted to make sure we spoke to you all before Christmas. Should you get the time to kind of get started over the holidays, with a view to moving next year. So we're going to try and keep this to 30 minutes. And we'll get as much information across to you as possible. So what we're going to talk about is how to get prepared. So what are the things you need to start doing? We're going to talk about where to live in New Zealand. So just have a little bit of a chat about that. Also securing a job. So the do's and don'ts of securing a job and how we help you. We'll talk a little bit about visas and residency, because we know that's also a topic that everybody's always really interested to hear about. And then we're also going to just give you some tips on what the next steps are. And then just a little bit of admin. You'll see that we've got the chat there, so feel free to pop your questions in the chat. Now, we will keep an eye on that. Mostly we do find we cover off things that people do ask. However, Jane, who is on the health team, is managing the chat. She will post up an email address. So if you do want to contact us via email, then you can always contact us directly with your questions. The other thing we will do is we will send a recording out of the webinar to everybody. So you can basically watch that at your will in case you want to rewatch any of it in your own time. Okay, so let's get stuck into it. So first things first, so getting prepared.
So Jo, what do you think would be the first place to start, best place?
Okay, well, first things first really is I would be certain that you want to move to New Zealand, right? And so I guess establish your own commitment, do some research, like understand, you know, what it's like to live in New Zealand. If you've not been to New Zealand before, you know, do you have friends here? Do some good research online. And then the next most important step is to check that you are eligible for your registration.
Definitely. And obviously, in regards to the eligibility, it depends on what profession you are in the health area where you're going to go to. But how do you find that out, Jo?
Yeah.
Let's say you're a physio, for example. What would you do first?
Yeah, really good question. So, depending on what profession you're in, as Robin said, then there's a different board for each for each sector of that. So whether you're a physio, whether you're an occupational therapist, if you're a nurse or a midwife or a doctor, then each one has their own registration board in New Zealand, and each board has their own criteria. And generally speaking, that's qualifications, years of experience, you know, is it comparable? And so what I suggest you do is Google your registration board for New Zealand and get started on that, because that can take 4 to 6 months depending on the board.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, another thing to note is depending on where you're coming from, where you're currently residing, there may be some other things required with your registration, such as doing an English test.
Yeah.
So it's right in saying, Jo, isn't it? You can find that information out when you go to the individual board. So the nursing council, etc., will tell you whether or not that's required.
That's right. Yes. So if English is not your first language, depending on where you're currently registered, you may need to do an English test, which is usually IELTS or OET. And then each board has their own kind of requirements for that. So, yeah, so important steps there. So what else, Robin? What other things do people need to do?
Really important to get your CV updated. So some of you may have a CV that's been there for a while, or you may not even have one. I think it's really important to make sure that those are simple and clear. And one of the biggest things to be mindful of is when you are listing your work experience, that you do it in reverse chronological order. So that is what you would start with, the job you're in currently or your most recent job, and work your way back from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good idea. And like Jo said earlier, running into the Christmas period, that could be something, if you had some holidays, obviously, that you can get onto straight away. So it's ready to go prior to having a chat with us.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is as well, we don't, you know, your CV doesn't need to be perfect. Just make sure it's clear and it's tidy and it's in that reverse chronological order. You know, we can't do anything without a CV. So if we are, you know, we will be offering consultations to people, but we can't have a consultation unless we've got your CV. So that's really important. But also, as we said, check that you are eligible for registration and get started. I mean, even just take that leap of faith.
Yes.
And get started with that. The other thing I think is really critical is thinking about the time frame.
Definitely.
That you want to move in, because it's so easy to think, well, I want to move next year, but then find that actually, you know, it's going to take you a lot longer than you thought it was going to take. So I always say, establish a goal, you know, set a time frame that you want to move to New Zealand in. And, you know, if you said 6 to 8 months, that is very doable. If you get onto it now, you start your registration, then you know, secure a job and get your visa. And those are actually probably good to reiterate. Those are the 3 sort of steps, if you will, is get your registration on track, secure a job, and then once your registration and your job are in place, then you apply for your visa. And so those are the 3 kind of sort of the orders but you do, but they can work concurrently as well. So you can do them alongside each other, but more on that shortly. What else, Robin?
In addition to that, in regards to your planning, obviously you need to check that you have funds available. There is a cost for registration, and we don't charge for our recruitment process, but obviously there's costs involved with the visa, and you will need to have money available in regards to relocation. So in your bank account. So it's really important to go, okay, here's my plan. I'd like to move within the next 12 months. And am I going to have enough money to do that?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, because some people get quite far down the process and think, oh, actually, I'm not going to be able to afford to do this. The other thing is as well, you can do is we offer visa eligibility assessments. So we do an initial assessment for free. We'll send you some details on that in our follow-up communication. But what you need to think about there is it's not just you that's moving. Oh, well, some cases it might be. But if you're moving with your a partner or any dependents, you need to look at the whole family, and everybody's going to need to be eligible. So it's really important that you look at that in terms of your age and in terms of if there's any issues or hurdles that might come up. So as I say, we'll send the email and the details for booking an assessment for that afterwards. Again, it's good to know that up front. Okay, well, that was quite a bit to cover off there, but we've moved swiftly along.
This is exciting.
This, and I just got distracted here by a question about yes, that's right, about you can get your registration approved, and then you can activate your APC. That's actually Jane has just responded about that. So how much do I need approximately for move, registration, visas, and your help? Oh gosh, that's thank you so much for your question. It's really hard to answer that because it depends on how many people you're moving with. Is it just you or is it your family? But if you contact us and we can do a visa assessment, then we can give you a bit more of an idea on what those costs are. But for nursing registration, it's about $1,400, I think it is, all up now, something like that. So it's not too bad, but that can vary depending on the registration board. We've got loads of questions, which is so good. So we'll keep tracking along. We'll try and get back to some of the questions, and if not, as I say, we'll either email us directly, but we can also put some FAQs into our follow-up email. So where to live? Well, Robin, I think this is, well, it's your territory, but I have actually been to every corner of New Zealand, but where should people live when they come to New Zealand? We often get asked that question.
We do. I think it's really important to once again do your research on this, depending on what your interests are. A lot of people obviously wanting to move to New Zealand to be involved in the outdoors and to take advantage of that, where other people that's not such an important decision or reason for them. So there is a lot online to have a look at all the different regions. Don't get trapped into just thinking, oh, there's just Auckland because that's where I arrive. There's plenty of other great places and great opportunities in regards to work as well in those places. So have a think about whether you want the city life. Do you want to be in a smaller town or smaller city? Do you want access to beaches, to the snow? All of those sorts of things you should consider, and try to perhaps keep quite broad. But you may also have friends or relatives that are already here, and so it's great to be able to be close to them too for support.
Absolutely, and I think that's totally perfect. And I think what people tend to do is because they only have heard of Auckland or Wellington, they'll think, oh, well, I want to move to Auckland or Wellington. And so we do try and understand from you when we do a consultation is, well, what, like Robin said, what are you into? What do you want to be close to? Have you got children? Do you want to be somewhere more lively? Do you want to be somewhere quieter? And also thinking about, the cost of living is such a huge topic globally at the moment. And, there is a sentiment that New Zealand is really expensive to live. And so I think it's really important that we address that today, because it does, as I say, I was in Singapore a few months back doing a seminar, and it was a big thing that people wanted to know about. And I like your comparison that
I think you've got to be really careful with that, especially if you're comparing where you're currently living to New Zealand. In my view, it's like comparing apples to pears, and they aren't the same. So you really need to try and sort of put those things in two different baskets. So once you're here, if you're looking at salaries and things like that, it's all very different what you're spending your money on, and
you're right.
And obviously, money is an issue for all of us. But there's ways of looking. Okay, well, perhaps Auckland's not going to be my bag. It might be better to have a look at a smaller city. And your cost of living is going to be a lot better there. So,
because your rent is always going to be the biggest expense. So looking at your rent and looking at house prices is really important. And just an interesting thing that I was talking to my brother at the weekend, he's in the UK still, and he said to me that his power bill next year, because of the increases, is going to be £6,000, right? Now, my power bill is probably about $1,500 to $2,000 a year. That's all.
Yes.
So you kind of go, well, people go, well, rent's really expensive, but think of, well, power is so much cheaper. And so there's so many free activities in New Zealand to do. We've got so much on our doorstep. And so where you might spend more in one area, you gain definitely in another. So I think it's like try and remove that kind of blanket, the cost of living is really expensive. I think you've got to look at all facets. You're in New Zealand dollars, the tax rate's quite good in New Zealand, it's quite favourable. So there's all those things to think about. And I think we're whetting your appetite on quite a lot of stuff here. So as we say, just feel free to send us emails, and we can respond to you individually as well. Okay, so we are next going to just talk about securing a job, which I think is probably one of the things on the tip of everybody's tongue, because it's kind of, apart from the fact that if you made a decision and wanting to move to New Zealand, the job really is driving everything. It's like, where's the job? Where can I work? What are the opportunities? Yes.
Yeah.
So let's just have a little chat about how to go about getting a job.
Yes. I think, well, as we mentioned before, this is sort of step 2 after you've gone through the registration process. And we sort of recommend to be starting the job search sort of with a 4 to 6 months to where you want to arrive. So it's no point looking for a job if you're not wanting to come till 2024 starting now. So that's sort of important to remember. And so once we're at that stage and we know that you're ready to go and wanting to be here, that's when we start talking with our clients. It's super important prior to that you haven't sort of sent your CV out everywhere, because that makes it quite difficult for us, because we then can't approach our clients. And one of the advantages of going through our recruitment process is we have relationships in place with clients, and by utilising our services, one, we're taking all the stress away from you and we're managing that for you, but also most of the time we're getting your CV to the top of the pile, and
that's right,
to make sure that you're getting in front of that client. So it's super important that you feel that you can trust us to look after the process for you, right from when we first contact the client about yourself, right through to the interviewing process and job offer. We can manage that for you, and take that stress away.
It's such a good point, because we often get have people approach us and they may have fired off their CV to lots of different district health boards, for example, and then it actually limits us because we can't approach those, and you may have already been discounted because they'll see that you're international and they don't know what stage you're at in the process, and you haven't got your registration. So immediately the prospective employer might go, well, I will just discount that application. And so I guess I want to really reiterate here is that myself and Robin and the rest of our team, all we do is international recruitment. We don't work with local candidates. And so the relationships we have and the employers we work with are those that are willing to and are open to international applicants. And because they are used to working with us, they know that we've helped you to get what we call job ready. I just like that kind of word. So it's like getting you to the point where you're ready to be marketed, basically, so that we can be your advocate, and we represent you right the way through. So that's right from we can check your CV, and we'll help you get prepared for your interview, and we'll follow up for your job offer and check your contract and make sure the salary is at the right level as to what we would anticipate. And so and we don't charge anything for those recruitment services. So it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because we've got that local market knowledge. And as Robin said, we get you to the top of the pile. We're getting you in front of the decision makers, which is really critical.
Yeah.
I know.
No, there are
talk about. Go on.
But I was just going to reiterate. Also, it makes this part of the process a lot quicker for you and a lot easier. In regards to just sending your CV through a portal for a job means it gets left in a pile, and like Jo said, can sometimes be seen as a bit too hard for the employer.
But also disappointing.
Yeah.
Like, we get so many that come to us, go, why can't I find a job? I've applied to all these jobs, I'm getting nothing. And then we'll speak to a candidate, understand your plans, match you with the right employers, the right role, and then within a week or two we'll get you an interview, basically. Generally speaking, once you're at that point to be approached in the market. So it makes a lot more sense, and it's a lot less stressful for you. Yeah.
We also get a lot of questions in regards to salaries, which back to the important money side of things. So, Jo, what would your advice be to our audience today about salaries?
Again, really good point. So, generally speaking, the health sector has collective agreements, and so we can provide, again, you can email us, but we can also provide that information on, depending on what part of the health sector you're in, they'll have a collective agreement and you'll have salary scales. And so there's no point kind of in, if you feel like a salary is not what you want with one district health board, there's no point in chasing a different salary with another one. Basically, they will assess you according to the transition of those skills and where you fit on that scale, and you will be put on that particular step. And so that's how that works. And so when we get to that stage as well, we can send you all that information. The other thing we tend to do as well is, we can send you what we call the PAYE information, which is the tax situation, so that then you can actually establish what actually you're going to have in your hand, and then you can start comparing that whole cost of living as well. So and all that information, as we know now, it's all just Googleable. So if you're committed to the process, you're committed to moving, is jump on Google and get some ground foundation knowledge. Goes back to that research as well. It's really great for us to understand your commitment. We can help you better if you know and you've done that sort of background research.
And what about relocations, Jo?
Yes, another big question. So a lot of people use the word sponsorship, and I think because other countries, I know Australia, I've always said they call it sponsorship. And I think that was always related to the visa, being sponsored for your visa, but that doesn't exist really anymore. It certainly doesn't exist in New Zealand. We veer away from that word sponsorship and talk about a relocation allowance. So what we will do is make sure that once you're at job offer stage, so you've had a successful interview, then we will discuss a relocation package for you. And normally it can vary so much, but it might be $3,000, it could be $10,000, depending on your role, the seniority of your role, depending on which particular employer you're in, private sector, public sector, whereabouts you're living, and usually that money is reimbursed.
It's important to note
when you start. So that goes back to what you were saying before.
So you need to have those funds available because you will need to pay for your flights and the initial costs. But then in those packages, they will then reimburse you once you arrive.
That's right.
So you can't rely on that money as part of your move plan.
No, that's right. That's absolutely right. So that comes back again, yeah. So thinking about that, and so you get reimbursed when you start. So that in that package, it might say that'll cover your flights or your shipping or even transferring your pet, etc. The visa, and so it's important that you factor that in. Right. Okay. So I can see the time, and I knew this was going to happen. Let's have a quick chat about visas and residency. So look, the most important thing here is as a health professional, there's what's called a green list in New Zealand, which is new. This was established in July. And depending on which tier you're on the green list, is tier 1 and 2, will determine whether you can apply for immediate residency, or you're on a fast track residency, which is after 2 years you can apply for residency. So it's mostly amazing news for everybody.
Yes.
Because you can either get here and apply for residency, or after 2 years you can. But the biggest change that happened in July was that Immigration New Zealand made is that every company in New Zealand that's hiring what they call a migrant worker has to be accredited. So they have to jump through loads of hoops to be able to hire a migrant worker. And so the new visa that you need for moving to New Zealand is an accredited employer work visa. So you get your registration, you get the job, and then you apply for accredited employer work visa, and your employer has to be accredited to be able to hire you. And
how long does that take, Jo, the visa process? Roughly?
It doesn't take that long. We normally say about 6 weeks, but it depends how long it takes to get your documents prepared, to do your medical, to get your police certificate, and all those kind of things. So we talk about an ideal world here.
Yes.
I mean, your registration you can do in 3 months if you get everything together.
Prepared.
If you're prepared, exactly. We get back to that again. And so
so that's right. It's quite good to do that visa pathway at the start, isn't it? So you can have some indication of what you'll need to do, and things that you could have ready to go for police checks and things like that.
Yeah. So we've got a huge visa team here. We've got about 20 licensed immigration advisors, and so we have something called My Visa Path, and that's your visa path, but we call it my visa path. And so we can do an initial assessment for free, and then a full assessment costs, I think it's $295. Basically that will enable us to have a look at you and your family and to assess all your eligibility to move, and talk to you about that process and the steps to do that visa. And so you don't need to go it alone. You'll get a full quote, and that quote will depend on like I say, the size of your family, whether you just want the work visa or whether you want us to help you all the way through to residency as well. Okay. Actually, one thing I want to say, and I will quickly, oh gosh, right, is the age thing. We get asked all the time. I just want to say, and I do see somebody's posted that. So basically residency, you've got to be 55 or under.
Yeah.
To apply for residency. However, there's 2 pathways. The skilled migrant. Actually, we're not even going to go into that. I'm not going to confuse you. But anyway, to be eligible for residency, you need to be 55 years or under. So if you want to get residency, then really you need to be moving here by the time you're sort of 53, to have that sort of plan in place.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I know we ran through that very quickly, but we do separate visa webinars, so we can always
Keep a
look
look
into
out.
those.
Yes.
Okay, so next steps. What should people do next, Robin?
I think the first thing is to complete the appraisal, and we'll be posting that link up on the chat. So, and if you can include a CV, if you do already have one, that's great.
Yeah.
But I think we also do have a profile form if you don't have one, if you can fill that in on there. Is that
would
correct?
come
Afterwards.
So we do prefer if you can upload your CV. Otherwise, Jane will email you and ask you for your CV, or we have a profile form that you can complete if you don't have a CV. So there is another option there. But yeah, we love it. We prefer it. If you can kindly send your CV as well.
Yeah. And if you haven't started your registration, hopefully today you've got enough information to know where to go to start that. That would be top priority. Get onto that straight away.
Yeah.
And once you have that in place, you've got the appraisal, Jane will be back in touch, and we can start the process in regards to your relationship with us at Working In.
That's right. And just to add there as well, that we do a one-on-one consultation. And so once you've got started with your registration, we've got your CV, then we have a proper one-on-one chat with you to understand your plans, your skills, what your time frame is, all those things, so that we can get you ready, so we can then put you forward to a job. So I think, and I see Jane has just posted the appraisal form. So if you're interested in taking the next step, and not, there's no obligation, it's like we're not going to force anything upon you. It's a step-by-step process, but good to get into on our radar. So fill in the appraisal form, and then we'll be back in touch, and we'll hopefully get to meet you one-on-one and then help you to secure a job, and our visa team can help you to secure a visa. And if you need support with relocation, we can do the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so gosh, I feel like we've run a marathon. I'm sure you probably feel like you were trying to keep up with us. So hopefully,
it's a lot of information.
I know. I mean, we do feel like we don't want to take up too much of your time. So hopefully you found it helpful. But look, the final thing I want to say is, I know we've probably got quite a lot of UK nurses on here, because I did see that the people that are registered. And so I want to say good luck with the strike next week. We're really behind you. We hope that you end up, getting what you deserve, and we'll be really keeping an eye on that ourselves. And so good luck with that. We appreciate the work that everybody does in the health sector. And so we very much believe that you deserve the best. Okay, anything else, Robin, to add at the end there?
No, just remember there is that email address too if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask after this. We're more than happy to help you there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you.
We do. We're very excited about helping you to move to New Zealand. Thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your evening, afternoon, whatever time of the day you're at. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.